serving underserved populations. My name's Tony Furman. I'm Director of Madison County Employment and Training. We administer WIA Title I funds and programs for 4 counties in southwestern Illinois, Madison, Bond, Jersey, and Calhoun. The easiest way to describe it is we're straight across the river from St. Louis, Missouri. Today we'll be discussing the registered apprenticeship programs for high school students with disabilities that have been developed in Madison County. They began in 2022 with 1 school and 1 employer and have grown this August. When school returns, we will have 4 high schools and 5 employers in the program. I'll be the moderator for today's presentation. Joining me are the panelists for today: Darlene Ladd, who is the Assistant Director for Madison County Employment and Training; Peyton Drury, the HR Director for the City of Collinsville; Debbie Barron, the Director of HR for the Agency for Community Transit; and Susan Schultz, the Assistant Bureau Chief for Region 5 for the Division of Rehabilitative Services. So Darlene, let's start with you. What is the LWIA's role in these programs?
Well, we are the sponsor with the Department of Labor. We are the local workforce area, so we enroll the participants in the WIA program. We provide job carving with the employer so that we understand what positions with the employer that we want to make an apprenticeshable occupation. We ensure the rapids are completed and the entries are done for the Department of Labor. We create on-the-job training contracts with the businesses. We provide on-the-job training reimbursements to the employers, and we provide incumbent worker training to upskill staff if necessary.
So Peyton, let's start with you since you were employer number 1. Why did you say yes to this program and as an employer?
Sure. So it kind of first started when we were coming out of COVID, and during that time, it was completely impossible to find any type of workers, part-time, full-time, anything. We just couldn't find them, especially qualified workers. So we were talking with Madison County and the school to develop a program where we can utilize some of their workers to work for the city of Collinsville. So that's kind of how the program started. We kind of thought it would be a great idea to have their students in the STEP program and start this apprenticeship program for our high need positions that we weren't being able to fill. That was at our Gateway Center and our Parks and Rec department. Both of them have very repetitive tasks to do. So in our parks, it's weed eating, mowing, landscaping, and then our Gateway Center, it's cleaning, housekeeping, setting up tables and chairs, that type of stuff. So overall, it was mainly just to find some high quality workers who could do the job.
Debbie, from the ACT perspective, you guys were second, so why? Debbie, you're muted.
Okay, so we were approached to see whether or not we had an interest in this program, and for us, really, it's the same thing. You know, the economy, trying to find people who wanted jobs, and we were having a very difficult time recruiting and keeping these positions filled, particularly some of the entry-level positions where there was just this continuous high turnover rate. And so we were interested in the program and joined because for us, it was a pipeline that if we could get students who were about ready to finish school, and maybe they weren't looking to go to college, but they were looking for some solid employment with good benefits, we offered that. And so for us, it was an opportunity to hopefully build a pipeline for some of these entry-level positions, get them acclimated and get them to where they had a sense of loyalty here, and then potentially to then offer those students, when they finish the program, a real permanent job here. And so for all those reasons, and we're also a nonprofit, and we believe in supporting the community efforts. And I think that this is a wonderful program that does that and gave us an opportunity to sort of give back to the community as well.
So Debbie, I'm gonna piggyback on that and something maybe bigger that you guys tested out, right? Because all your employees before this were full-time employees, correct? So this program gave you the opportunity, bringing in a high school student who had school during the day into a part-time role. So would you like to touch on that at all?
Sure. So Tony, you're right. I mean, we typically don't have a lot of part-time positions here. In fact, I think our apprentice is the only one, with the exception of a couple high-level directors who kind of come in and do some odds and ends here and there. So it was interesting to figure out how to make that situation work for us and what that would look like. So we had to talk about things like benefits and how does that play out and starting salaries and things like that. But for us, it really has been a win-win situation, because the position that we have this apprentice in was a position that was able to work around his school hours as well.
So we'll start with Darlene on this, and we'll look at it from our perspective, the LWIA perspective, and then Peyton and Debbie, get ready for your part from the employer perspective, okay? So Darlene, what was the process?
So for us, the process is it was sitting down and looking at the jobs and finding out, where were the needs? What does an employer have a need for? And then what could we make a job out of a 4-hour day? When we started with Collinsville, it started out of a need. The school needed some extra activity for the students, and then discussions occurred. And then the next thing we knew, we were in an apprenticeship. So really, it's looking at it, how can we meet the needs of the employer? And then it's working with the Department of Labor once we identify what the job description is and what those positions are, working with the Department of Labor to identify the standards and the apprenticeship, coming back to the employer, making sure those meet their needs, and then working with the schools to find the students to fill the positions who would be a good fit. And then all the other paperwork we have to do to enroll, to do the contracting with OJT, and to enroll the students within WIOA.
So Peyton, I'm gonna go to you next and sort of say, what was the original process that was very unsuccessful, and how has that transitioned into the process that you currently use and the other employers use as well?
Sure. So originally it was a very difficult process the first year. Essentially what we did is we said we had 6 kids, and then they started working basically the next day. And that's kind of how it felt. Everyone was very, they were not prepared for the volume of people that they had to come in and train. I don't think any of our staff were prepared for what to expect of this program either. There was a lot of behavioral issues with some of the students, and I don't think our team really knew how to navigate that, just because that's not something that we have experienced before. Moving forward, we developed a participant handbook that we went over with all of the students and their parents, that outlined all the expectations of the program. Everybody knew what to expect. We also had some de-escalation training for our staff who would be supervising the students that would be coming in. Not only was it helpful, I think, for the students coming in, I think it was helpful for all employees as a whole. And we also made it more of a real life job process for them. So the students came in for a tour and a demonstration, so that they would see what the job that they could be doing is. So for example, one of the jobs is in our parks department. So one of our park supervisors came over, showed them how to landscape, pull out weeds, and do some weed eating. So that they could give the students a real life example of what they could actually be doing. From there, they did have to go to our website online to apply for the job that they were wanting. From there, we would do an interview with all the students. Then the supervisor would call them saying if they got the job or not. After that, we would hold a parent meeting with the students and the parent, go over the handbook and the expectations, address any questions that any of the parents or students had. And then they started their first day. They did onboarding, orientation, met all the supervisors that they would be working with.
Debbie? So you came into the process after some of those initial issues had been seen in Collinsville. So do you have anything different that MCT, ACT does that Collinsville does not?
We followed a very similar path, and I'm glad that Peyton got all the bugs out. So when we actually jumped on board, one of the things that we had to do was we had to create a job description that had to be approved by the Department of Labor, I assume. And so it was just a culmination of, what do we want this position to look like? What are the things that this person can do in this role? And so we went through that whole review process of what the job actually was going to be. We did all the paperwork behind the scenes, working with all of you. And then we went through a very similar process. We had 2 people who came on board. They actually did exactly what Peyton described. They went through filling out an application. They were interviewed by the hiring manager, just as a regular employee would be. They were offered the position. They got an offer letter stating what the job was, what the salary was going to be, what their hours were going to be. And then we waited and they accepted. And then we had a meeting with their parents and all of your folks and sort of went over the expectations of what the program was. We gave them one of our employee handbooks so that they had all of the policies. We made it clear that this was a job and that they needed to perform at a satisfactory level in order to maintain that position. And we really went at it from that perspective. They did go through onboarding. They went through everything that a regular employee would go through coming on to the company. And then we assigned them a mentor, someone who had been here for quite a while and who was familiar with this particular job, and made sure that the mentor knew what the expectations were for the program and what their role was as well. And then we went forward, and I would just add that one of our apprentices didn't make it through the program. And we felt like they needed to be successful in school and they needed to be successful here. And if our program was in any way compromising the educational aspect of what they were doing, then we felt like that was not a good thing for the program or for the student or for us. And so, but it was fine. I mean, we explained it, and I think this person, ultimately, I think whatever experience you go through, you learn from. So hopefully this student learned that, there's commitments and there's things that have to kind of be a certain way, and they'll take that experience with their next opportunity for employment. So I don't ever think that these are wasted opportunities, no matter how they turn out. The other apprentice is doing awesome, so. But very similar process to Peyton, and I'm glad that she paved the way.
So as we talk about students doing well, both in Collinsville and at ACT, how do you monitor success? I know Darlene, Peyton, Debbie, whoever wants to take that first. I know we have a way of measuring, but I think probably how the employer measures success is probably more important in the process, correct? So Debbie, you want to keep going and tell us how you measure success with the bus cleaning position at ACT?
Sure. So we have a template that we probably got from you. It's a tool that we assess the apprentice on a regular basis. And we started with that from the premise of the job description itself. We pulled out what are the skills and what are the requirements necessary to be successful in this job. And so on a regular basis, we monitor this person's performance and we check off all the boxes, and that is submitted on a regular basis along with his timesheets and when he gets paid. So he has to meet, a certain level of performance in all of these various different skill categories in order to be successful here and continue to stay in the program. So it's a combination of pulling things from the job description and then just making sure that he is hitting all of these targets. And to date, he's done very, very well.
Peyton? How about in Collinsville?
Yeah, I would echo exactly what Debbie was talking about as well. We do follow the same kind of process of narrowing down the competencies of what they are and making sure the student can meet those every single month. If the student is struggling or is unable to meet those, we make sure we reach out to Madison County, the STEP coordinator, just to make sure that they can also, or their teacher, to make sure that they can also work on those in the classroom as well.
So Darlene, would you like to talk about how DOL measures success? And
Well, sure. So the competencies that they're talking about come from the apprenticeship itself. And the way we get those is by looking at the job descriptions, and narrowing down the functions and how individuals are meeting the competencies to be proficient in the function. So for us, it is their ability to maintain the employment to meet those competencies. It's going to be, at the end, the success is if they're able to continue into that position or if they decide to go somewhere else. I think another measure of success that we're also not talking about is the fact that these are students who are getting ready to leave high school. So now we are teaching them work. So even if they're not successful, it's what they take away, is what they're learning for work is definitely a success. And we're also bridging the pathway to adult services for them. They are affiliated and connected to Division of Rehabilitation while they're in high school. So they already do have that connection to the adult component upon graduation, but the success is being able to maintain employment or what they're learning about employment as they go through the process.
so Darlene, you've done so well with this in our presentations throughout the last couple of years. What were some of our challenges? And we'll probably have more on Peyton than Debbie. Like I said, Debbie came in when some of these challenges were worked out. So Darlene,
Sure.
so let me add, if you're blissfully not knowing anything and you're at an event in Collinsville and you just happen to stop by the Gateway Convention Center and run into the director of the convention center and the HR director of the city, talking about how all the issues they're having with this new apprenticeship program, it was quite an eye-opener. So what were the challenges, Darlene?
So one of the biggest challenges that we faced is this was the first year after kids had been homeschooled from COVID. So here they were back into the classroom. So we had fatigue from being in the classroom because they'd been out of the classroom. They'd been, online at home. So now we have fatigue of going back to school and being put in that kind of a consistent schedule and regimen, if you'll have it. And then now, we're putting them into jobs. And we didn't do our due diligence in the beginning. We had, as Peyton indicated, we had 6 jobs, we had 6 people. And it was kind of like, you get a job and you get a job, you get a job and you get a job. Well, as we know, that's not always perfect formula for success. It kind of became apparently smacking us in the face when one of the individuals who was working in grounds didn't want to be dirty. So you can't really do lawn care, mowing, weed eating, or blowing if you're afraid that your nails will get broken and you're going to get dirty. So we even tried to be creative and provide coveralls, but now those aren't stylish. So not only are you not stylish, but you can't get dirty. Cell phones were an issue that we had found out because for some of our students, they only had Wi-Fi service. So now they're in a building where there's Wi-Fi access. And lo and behold, they have a phone, and the convention center is a very large place with lots of places to kind of sneak away to talk on the phone or to text or do whatever you need to do to catch up with your boyfriend or girlfriend or best friend, whatever. So we found out that cell phones were definitely a problem for us. Also, we had a person who just didn't want to be there. And so if you'd say, hey, could you go do this task? The answer would be no. I don't think so. I don't want to. No, thanks. Nope. Or I'll just sit in this chair until I'm ready to do what I want. So those were some of our initial problems, just individuals not really matched. It wasn't a good fit. We also didn't explain what an apprenticeship was. We didn't explain it to the staff. We didn't explain it to the students, to the teaching staff, to the parents. No one really knew what it was. Everybody just thought this was like a co-op job, Because the way the STEP program is set up is that they get release time. They do classroom instruction about employment and work experience, and then they're released to go to work. So this was just a co-op job in a lot of the minds of those who were participating. And it wasn't, they didn't realize this was a year long. We didn't realize this was a year long process, a calendar year. We thought we could wrap this up by the end of the school year, which we found out we couldn't. So that was another thing that was a problem. So, you know, we had to really sit down and get kind of down and dirty with ourselves and really talk about problems, not hold back. If somebody thought something was happening on the work site, if we started having frontline meetings, and if a supervisor said, I don't know if this is a problem or not, but I've noticed, and then we're like, oh, yes, we probably need to talk about that. So, and then we had individuals who just lost their jobs during the first apprenticeship cohort for just employee infractions, just doing anything that another employee would be terminated for. So there was a variety of different things that came up.
So Peyton, let's look at it from staff. What were the challenges for the staff, on both sides, from their own issues plus issues dealing with students?
Sure. I think Darlene hit most of the major points on what was happening with our staff. But I think the first year, like Darlene said, I don't think the importance of the apprenticeship program was stressed enough, and I don't think people really understood what it really meant. And then I think after we explained to all of our frontline supervisors what it meant, what the importance is, what we gain out of this, and that kind of triggered everybody to be on board with the program, and to really step up and participate.
So a follow-up question, it's not a challenge for Collinsville because of how it was, but let's have just a quick discussion between you and Debbie about transportation, right? So what does the city of Collinsville do? And the difference between your programs as well and the time of day also has an effect on that. So Peyton, what did the city do to meet the transportation needs for the students?
Yeah, so ours, we had our senior shuttle bus, which we provide to everyone in the city of Collinsville, senior citizens or anyone with disabilities. They're able to take this bus and take them to anywhere in Collinsville. So we were able to schedule a route for a senior shuttle bus to pick up the students at school, probably like around 12:15, 12:30, and bring them to the work site. And then actually this semester, Collinsville High School developed a special route to take the students to school instead. I think just because that they were already doing a special route anyway, so it just made more sense to do that for them. And then after the work was over, the parents or a guardian or whoever would have to pick up the students after school or at the work site after school.
So Debbie, you can't clean a bus when it's out there pulling people around the county, can you? So.
Right. So for us, because we only had two, when you work here, you can ride our bus services for free. And so I don't know that either apprentice actually, took advantage of that, but certainly they could ride our bus back and forth here from wherever location they're coming from school. But for us, I think their transportation was mainly provided by their family members. So, parents or grandparents would drop them off here, and then, pick them up at the end of their shift. So transportation for us, even though we're a transportation company, didn't really factor in so much for us. And then obviously then we dropped down to just the one. And so he had his own arrangements, and he has since, I think, got his driver's license. So that's going to solve some of the transportation issues for his family to get him back and forth to work.
Hey, Darlene, I know would you like to touch on that, sort of a bigger picture of what this program has done for that young man? Because I think we hear the stories here a lot, so.
Sure. So with the young man that works at ACT, when he started, his grandparents took turns. One would drop him off and one would pick him up because the hours are from 7 to 10. And as they progressed with taking him to and from work every day, Monday through Friday. He started driving himself to work with grandma or grandpa in the car and grandma in the car, and driving himself home to the point where he was comfortable enough to go and get his driver's license. And I'm not sure when he's going to start going solo. I don't think he's quite comfortable yet, but I would anticipate with time, especially probably when summer gets here, he'll probably be more comfortable. You don't have to worry about the weather and stuff. But for that young man, his grandmother tells us all the time when they go to different stores or they'll be doing something, she'll say, David, would you like to work here? And he always looks at her in this astonishment. And he says, no, I have a job. I'm going to stay at my job. I like my job. Why would I want to work here? And she's like, okay, I just thought I'd ask because you never know. You might want a different job. And he's like, nope, I don't want a different job. I like my job. So I think David is very happy. And I'm going to guess you have a long-term employee here.
Yeah, it's actually definitely our intent. He finishes the program in August, and that was one of the things I wanted to point out, like, which is fine for us, but we were thinking it was like based on a school year. So I think that's one point to make. To Darlene's point, like it's a year from when they start. So we were thinking, well, he's going to be out of school, in May. He can start here, as an employee if we offer him, the position, but it is actually through August. So that's fine. And we'll continue with, this program, but it is absolutely our intent at the end of this program to hire David, because again, he's been really, really successful. I do think that we're going to have a long-term employee here, and we're thrilled because I think that's the ultimate goal of this program, is to either move them and transition them to full-time employment, or to at least give them all the skills and all the basics that if it's not here, that it's somewhere. And the way the program is structured and the process by which we bring people on, I think is wonderful. It's not like they just walk in and you go, okay, here, we're going to make you this apprentice. And they kind of hand you this role. They had to go through the whole interview process and fill out an application and all the tools that are needed for someone to be successful at a job, getting a job. It gave them all the skills to do that. And you are right. We are absolutely going to offer David that full-time position, between now and August, if things hold, as I have no reason to believe that they won't.
So Debbie, I'm going to stay with you. And so what do you expect from the apprentice?
They have a job description. And, really, we just expect them to come to work, be on time, have good attendance, as we would any other employee, do their work successfully, ask questions if they need help, and really just gain from the experience and, come to work with that, I can do this, I want to be here kind of attitude, versus what Darlene had described, where people were just kind of they were disengaged. They weren't really connected. And we've tried to do a really good job of connecting David so that he kind of feels part of the team. And so those are our expectations. We did not lower our performance expectations for the apprenticeship program. And I think that's an important piece to point out. It is a job, and we treated it that way. And he gets reviewed every month, just like a regular employee would be reviewed, or, at the end of the year gets a performance review. So we didn't treat David any differently. Yeah, I mean, his mentor might have worked with him a little bit more to make sure that he was on board, but yeah, he just kind of fit in, and he did a really good job from the beginning.
So Peyton, you've got several different positions, a couple different departments. So what are the expectations? Are they the same from department to department? Are there different expectations?
I would say they're definitely similar expectations. As Debbie mentioned, we expect them to perform all the responsibilities of the job. Yeah, we might have to, help them maybe a little bit more, but we also expect them to do all the responsibilities that's expected of them. I think, and I'm not sure if our program is a little bit different from Debbie, but we do have a lot of employees, especially at our convention center, where you might not be working with the same people every single day. So I think there's a lot of people down at our convention center and parks that are mentors, but it's not going to be the same person that the same student is going to run into every single day. I don't think we've really had too many challenges with it because everybody's on board with the program. But it's just the way our departments work.
I think we've touched on this a little bit already. I don't know if Peyton or Debbie, you want to add anything in, but how do you orient the apprentice? I mean, I think we've touched on that already, but
Sure, and it's just during like their first day on the job. I will go over any onboarding paperwork that they have with them. During the parents meeting, like I mentioned before, go over the participant handbook. I also go over it with them again, just to make sure I'm setting them up for success on the first day of their job. And then I also appraise the supervisors that they also need to go over any specific expectations that they have for them, whether that be department policies or any type of performance expectations.
Yeah, I think ours is very similar. They go through a regular orientation and onboarding just like any other employee. They fill out their paperwork. They go through it's about a half of a day. They go through videos for safety and all of the things that we need them to be aware of. As Peyton said, we have a handbook. We go through our main policies to make sure that they understand, what the rules are and what they can and can't do. We do a tour. It's pretty inclusive. We introduce them to their mentor. And to Peyton's point, they do work basically with the same people. So the mentor didn't change for the apprentice through this program. So that was a little bit different, but they go through the normal stuff that everybody goes through, I-9s and tax forms and all the things that you go through when you're starting a job. And I think it's just been a really good experience, I think, for these students to know what that's like out in the real world when you're getting a job.
so Darlene, that's the employer side. How do us government folks orient the apprentices as well? So
Okay, so yeah, we have to start a little ahead of them starting on the job because we're enrolling them into the WIOA system. So, we have to sit down with them and talk to them about what that means. And we obtain all their paperwork documentation so that we can do the enrollment process. And then it's explaining to them the case management services they're going to receive from our agency as a result. So they get to meet the case manager who's going to work with them. And she's great because as well, if the employer runs into a little bit of a snafu or needs some extra support, she's there. She's really good. She'll go in and look at the job, and if we need any assistance with looking at the work, she's great to help do that as well. So for us, it's helping them understand that they are now connected to, we're looking at them as a service that's there for them to carry them throughout the rest of the school process. And then, they have another adult connection. So for us, ours is a little more lengthy just because of the paperwork we have to do. But we start that process with them before they start the job.
everybody wants to be paid, right? So Debbie, Peyton, how do you pay the apprentice?
We pay the minimum wage, but then 50% during the program comes from Madison County. And then we'll look at the 6-month mark, we'll look to see how they're doing in their job performance, and we'll give them a little bit of a bump after they've been working here for a while.
And for us, it's we kind of set their starting wage kind of based on what our range is for that position. And obviously they're making a little bit less than that, but And then we actually do a bump, I believe it's quarterly for us, based upon the completion of the skills. So there's a timeline for when they get those increases. And I think it's like, Peyton says, like 50 cents or something. Here they get a shift differential because he's working the night shift. So that adds an additional $2 an hour to their rate of pay. So this is a pretty nice place for someone to do an apprenticeship because our pay is pretty decent. Let's see. Working out the payroll has been a challenge for us. That's been an area where we're there now. But there was a little bit of some hiccups as far as being able to process the timesheets and knowing what we needed to do and getting that straightened out. And we do get also reimbursed half of their salary. So just, working with accounting to make sure that we had all of the things in place, and the supervisors knew they had to do the assessments, and that space kind of figures into their pay as well. And like everybody, we make mistakes, so we missed one of his bumps along the way, but we caught it, and we made up for it. We retroactively paid him, and he was fine with that. And I think this is just a huge learning experience for everybody. And we look at David so much like a regular employee, we just kind of forget sometimes that he's not really, and he's in this program, and we got to do a few things a little bit different. But yeah.
So Darlene, would you like to talk about the reimbursement?
Sure. So I did notice there were some questions about do the apprentices make minimum wage? Yes, they do start at minimum wage or higher, as Debbie had indicated, because of the shift differential. That apprenticeship pays higher than that. So the subsidy that everyone is talking about is when we start this project, we enroll the business and the participant in on-the-job training. So we enter into a contract with the business, and we reimburse them up to 50% of the salary of the apprentice for up to a year for the duration of the apprenticeship, so that the employer actually receives a wage subsidy back through our office. And that's why then they turn in paperwork to us under our contract so that we can do that subsidy back to them.
I think we've touched on this a little bit already as well. What was the parental support? I mean, I think it's come a long way in 2 years, but so I'll let anyone answer that. So
I think the first year we didn't involve in parents at all. And I think that was a big mistake on our part. So the next year we involved parents a lot. Like I've mentioned before, we had the parents meetings just to make sure everybody was on the same page, provided any contact information if they needed to contact me, maybe to get their students' pay stubs or contact information for the supervisors, just in case they needed to contact them directly too.
Yeah, I think that also, again, I had mentioned before, parents and students didn't realize this was a Department of Labor registered apprenticeship. And with that, I don't think that individuals realize that, the training hours they receive in school through the school curriculum, through the STEP program, is the training, that they're receiving for this apprenticeship. So, they're getting their related instruction in the school through the STEP program, and it's a work-based learning program. So they are learning work while they're in school with experiences, and then we're coming in and providing the employment opportunity through the businesses to complete the apprenticeship hours. So this is I don't think parents understood that this was actually a Department of Labor registered apprenticeship, and that it was set up similar in capacity to other apprenticeships where you have the RTI, the related training instruction, and then the actual work time that goes with it. So I think that was helpful. And then with the next crew that came in, we were able to actually really sit down and explain that, and they understood it. And so now it's nice to be able to explain that with the parents and help them really understand, so that they have that buy-in. Now they realize their son or daughter or grandson or guardian, is going to come out with with that certificate, that they could go anywhere else in the country because they've met the competencies and the standards for that position, and hopefully get a job somewhere else in a similar capacity.
So I'm seeing several questions in the chat. Our hope is to wrap up our part of this by about 10 till, and then we'll touch on those questions and other questions possibly from the audience. So Susan, you've been sitting there quiet for 40 minutes. So Darlene mentioned the STEP program. So let's start to look at rehab services and their piece in this. So how does rehab services fund the program that the students are in that allows them to be a part of these apprenticeships?
Yeah, so thanks. So the Division of Rehab Services, or commonly known as DOORS, sets aside funds every year as a part of our budget for transition services, and this is commonly known as the STEP program. We have STEP contracts with many schools in the state of Illinois. The students that are in this program are all part of the STEP program at their schools. And the overall goal of the STEP program is to support transition for students as they move from high school into adult life, specifically where it's related to competitive integrated employment. Our DOORS counselors will work with the students, the school staff, the youth service coordinators, and families to ensure a smooth transition. So, for instance, these students are in a class and they're learning specific pre-employment transition skills like job exploration counseling, work-based learning experiences, counseling on post-secondary education, workplace readiness training, and instruction in self-advocacy. So part of the contracts we have with the schools includes the Secondary Transition Experience Program, which is what STEP is. And it's basically an evaluation training program. So students have an opportunity to gain some experience and learn about working in the community.
Right. So for all of you, what do you think it means to be an apprentice in this program?
So I think it means that you're excelling at the position that you're working. You have met all the competencies of the position. You're registered by the Department of Labor, and you can go to anywhere in the United States and hopefully get a job somewhere else that is similar to those competencies.
Yeah, I second what Peyton said. I think it is an opportunity to explore the workforce and to get all of that experience that you're going to need, and to develop some of those life skills that are going to make you successful no matter where you end up. And I think the certificate that you get out of it, certified by the Department of Labor, is a wonderful tool for these individuals to be able to prove that they have had the wherewithal, to stick with this program and to be successful.
And I think especially, when a lot of students are coming out of high school and maybe only looking at college-bound activities, I think for some students who maybe that's not the first option for them, or not on their radar, not something they want to do, they've actually come out with a certificate that they can show an accomplishment for what they've done with employment, which is, just as important as, a certificate in a lot of instances from, going to an 8-week program, or, for them, it's that accomplishment. It shows an employer down the road that, look, I was able to meet this standard, this accomplishment. I got this certificate because of my ability to do work. So I think it's just a selling point, even if it's not in the same industry. It's kind of like having a certificate from, a community college. Sometimes you don't always go to work in that area that you have that certificate in, but it shows the achievement that you were able to do it and what you were able to accomplish.
And really, it's a jump start into the world of work. These students are having the opportunity to really start working before they've graduated high school and gain a lot of experience, which is good for them.
And can I say one thing on the flip side of that? I think that our apprenticeships have provided people in the labor force opportunities to work with individuals with disabilities that maybe they would have not had in other opportunities. And I think that we are breaking, mindsets. We're changing mindsets. We're changing perceptions. So now, as Debbie had said, David is just an employee. He has seen the same as everyone else. And so that's really that's the twofold part of this mission, right? Is that, you know, individuals are treated as everyone else on the workforce, in the labor force, but then the labor force is treating them as they would anyone, because now you're breaking down barriers. You're creating a cohesive labor force.
Peyton, Debbie, why did companies get involved in this apprenticeship program?
I think it, you know, as we talked about earlier, I think it was the staffing, you know, concern for us. It was for us. We continue to look at schools and colleges and try to build these pipelines so that we, you know, meet the challenges of what's going on in our economy and in trying to hire folks. So I mean that was our purpose, plus the fact again that we are here at Agency for Community Transit, we want to give back to the community that supports us as well. And so just like we have a huge grants program that people in the community can apply for grants here, we give money to many businesses here in Illinois that need our services or that fit our mission. And so for us, I think the apprenticeship program was just sort of another avenue by which we could make that connection with the community. So, and hopefully we get employees.
Yeah, I would exactly echo what Debbie's saying as well. It just helps us fill those hard to fill positions.
So what have your employees gained from this? How about let's flip it to that side? I mean, all the gain has not been for these young people coming into the apprenticeship programs, have they? I mean, Peyton, what have you seen from staff at Gateway and the Parks and Rec
I've
Department?
definitely seen a lot more people step up to their current role that they have. They have become great mentors, not only to the students, but I think to every new employee that comes in. And honestly, even some of our apprenticeship students have been mentors to the new apprenticeship students coming in as well.
Cool. Yeah, we only have one, so and he works nights, so and it's a small team, so I probably don't have the same reciprocal kind of thing with employees that Peyton has had or experienced with her own staff. But I do think that just the mere fact that we are engaged in this program and that it does help folks who are challenged, I think that it says a lot for who we are and what we stand for. And our employees have been very gracious in working, you know, with, well, we started with two, so, you know, both of them. And he just continues to fit in. And I think that says a lot about our culture.
So last question for the panel, and then we'll go to questions from the audience. What do you see as an employer as the future of this apprenticeship program? Peyton, I know we're about ready to start cohort number 4 at Collinsville.
Yeah,
And
I mean, I definitely see it continuing on, hopefully to go into some different departments right now. But yeah, I can see this program definitely continuing. Hopefully we get some maybe some more students that want to take on more like managerial roles, because we do have a managerial role at our convention center that is a hard to fill position. So that would be kind of looking forward.
For us, I definitely see this program continuing. In fact, we have a meeting scheduled, I believe, toward the end of the week or next week, to just talk about like, where do we go from here? How many students do we want to consider for the program next year? And also looking at some opportunities for some different jobs. So to Peyton's point, you know, we have groundskeepers and we have people who work in our maintenance department and do like service type roles. And so we're really kind of hoping to expand and find not only our current role that we've developed, but maybe another one. You know, maybe there's another skill set here that we might be able to move, make an apprentice program out of that as well. So I'm looking forward to just really kind of continuing to grow the program really here. We started off very small based on Peyton's experience. We were like, well, maybe we should start a little bit smaller. And we did that. And so I think we have the capacity now to maybe expand a little bit.
Darlene, do you want to add anything for our employer partners who are not here today?
Sure. So when the first cohort happened and we had a successful graduate, it kind of really got a lot of interest from all of the area high schools that we have here in Madison County. Every high school wanted an apprenticeship. So we started talking to different businesses, and we were fortunate that we've gotten some very positive press with our apprenticeship with Collinsville. So we've been very successful in getting employers on board. We not only have the city of Collinsville, ACT, we have Westar Aviation, which is a private employer who is on board, who started an apprenticeship in, I believe it was September. And then we also started with Icon Mechanical. We have an apprenticeship with them. They're an engineering firm. So we have a safety administrative assistant position that we worked out. And then we also have an apprenticeship that is starting with Weber Chevrolet here in August, doing parts running and working in the warehouse. And so, employers are seeing the success. We're talking about ways to meet their labor needs and looking at the bigger picture of what an apprenticeship is. And I think that, we have a couple of other employers that we've been talking to. So it's definitely, I think, changing the face of employment. We always encourage the employers, like Debbie was saying, let's start out with 2 at the most, 1 or 2, because we learned from kind of our mistakes of starting with 6 is a lot. It's a lot for an employer to handle. Just, starting 6 students of any kind at one time is a lot because you're teaching work, you're teaching employment. So we always talk about starting small, making it very, tailored to, having 1 or 2 positions. And then it can always be expanded outward as the model grows and becomes successful.
Great. Hey, Kirsten, I'm going to look to you. I know there were questions in the chat. Can you?
Yes, there is. Lots
Thank
of
you.
questions. Okay, let me scroll back up here. So a lot of people. Okay, so the first question is, what types of things did you include in the participant handbook for Peyton or Debbie?
Sure. So I included how to get your pay stub, expectations that they need to follow, different policies, such as like our cell phone policy, contact information, their rate of pay, how they would be monitored every month, like the addresses of their work location, uniforms, what they need to wear every day, just essential stuff for the job that they would need to know.
A lot of people are saying they would love to see the participant handbook. Is that something you would share?
Yeah. Yep. Sure. I can definitely share it.
Okay, great. Yeah, we can send that out with the follow-up
Okay.
materials with the recording and everything.
Okay. Sounds good.
Next question is for Peyton and Debbie again. Did you create the job descriptions, or for Darlene? And did you create the job descriptions based on the student, or did you create the job descriptions first and then pair the students to the job?
These are job descriptions. The only thing that we do is we look at the work. So if you take an 8-hour job, you can't expect a student who's there for 4 hours to do 8 hours worth of work. So we take it down. We look at the essential functions of what needs to happen while they're there. Because the other things that we talk about when we do a little bit of job carving on these positions is what are the essential functions that you're maybe pulling other labor away from to do. So, are you taking a more skilled person to do something that may be more entry level that we can then fill into this job description that needs to happen? But these are job descriptions. It's their positions. We just look at carving them down to meet the 4-hour window or the 3-hour window.
Awesome. A lot of people are saying in the chat they would love to see the assessment that you use to monitor success as well. Any assessments you use to monitor success of the employees. So if that's something that we could share, that would be great. Peyton or Debbie?
Yeah,
Sure.
I think those are all based on the competencies
Yeah.
and the actual standards that are established by the Department of Labor to meet, right?
Right. So
Yeah.
I have all of our competencies listed in the handbook that we give out to all students. So the competencies that are in the handbook so if it's a parks employee, it says weed eating, they have to skill that weed eating skill in order to meet those competencies. So basically every month, the supervisor sits down with the student and they just have a worksheet that says if they're skilled in it or not, if they're still at the beginner stage, if it's in the intermediate stage, that type of thing.
And we do roughly the same thing, you know, with our tool that they provided. It's a checklist and they get rated, you know, like, I don't know, you know, beginner, expert, very good, excellent, in terms of these various competencies that they perform. And it is done at least monthly, and then informally it's you know, monitored as they're performing their job.
Okay. Darlene, this is a question for you. Do you also count co-op jobs as youth apprenticeships or just these within the STEP program?
No, these are specifically Department of Labor registered apprenticeships. These are not co-ops. That was the thing that we had to clearly define with the parents and the staff in the beginning, that this is a competency-based model apprenticeship. This is not a co-op. So this is strictly designed to be an apprenticeship.
Can any of you discuss how the related technical instruction occurs and is funded?
Yeah, it's provided through the school. So when we were talking about the STEP program class, that class is where the related technical instruction occurs. And then what is nice about that is we have open communication with the teachers who are instructing the STEP program. So for example, with Peyton, if they are identifying a problem that's happening at work, so let's say it's a hygiene issue with a student, we relay that, she relays that information back to the teacher, who then will do a lesson on things such as hygiene at work, what you need to do in order to go to work, be appropriate, how to, you know, do those things. Or if it's a behavior related problem that comes up, then the instructor for the class will work that into the lesson plan. So not one person is being, you know, drawn aside to talk to about it, but it's a lesson for the entire class to glean from. So they just work it into the curriculum. And Collinsville uses the Envision It curriculum that they modify as needed for the participants when things come up.
Okay, great. And then we had a lot of questions about the STEP program, but Susan's been answering those in the chat. So that's awesome. Thank you, Susan. The last couple questions, we have 1 minute left.
So Brian Smith just asked, are
Okay.
they competency-based, time-based, or hybrid? They are competency-based, which is a requirement of 1 year. So that's why we try to start them August to August, because students, when they get to summer and school's out, they should be further along in the process, more independent, where the employer can actually see if they think they can do the job and continue on after the apprenticeship program ends.
And then we had someone request, with all of this great program information, if any of the students are open to coming to a pre-apprenticeship expo. So if they are, we could maybe share out the contact information from the panelists here.
Yeah, let's follow up, and that would be, we would need to circle back with the school or the apprentices. So we're out of time. So very quickly, just wanted to thank everybody for attending the webinar this morning. Hope the information was informative. But more importantly, if you're inspired to dig a little deeper into these programs and replicating them in your area, we're always happy and available to discuss the program, how it started here, the issues we ran into, and to help in any way to take this program out of Madison County into other areas of the state and the country, actually. So thank you all for attending again, and we hope you have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you all.